It was all a dream. I used to read Word Up magazine. Salt and pepper and heavy D up in the limousine. Hanging pictures on my wall. Every Saturday, rap attack, Mr. Magic Molly Mall. I let my tape rock till my tape pop. Smoking weed and bamboo.
All right, here we are. Y'all remember that second law of thermodynamics we talked about a couple weeks ago? The universe inevitably moving towards a state of greater disorder. I think we have more proof that it's still alive and well. We got a refresher course for sure in how fast a fantasy team can fall apart this week. So just for our amazement and amusement and just to get the schadenfreude out of the way, we're going to read off the injury list from just this week. We have Aaron Rodgers, wrist injury. Michael Penix, knee, done. Dylan Gabriel, concussion. Justin Herbert, he went out with a head neck injury. He's off this week, so hopefully he's back just fine, but we don't know. Josh Jacobs, knee injury. Jaylen Warren, ankle. Kamani Vidal, thigh injury, came back to play. Bashal Tutin, high ankle sprain. Amari DeMarcado, ankle. Drake London, knee. Kamara DK, concussion. Mecole Hardman, calf. And last and definitely least important, Calvin Ridley, fibula.
Dan, you doubled down on the science guy opening, huh?
I did, yes.
He's trying to take that mantle over.
Man, oh man.
And now we're just a week past the anniversary of the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, and what did we happen? We had the gales of November on Sunday, so we had way too much actual wind.
I have no clue. I don't know what's going on anymore. I don't even know. I'm here for the football. I don't know about this other stuff. I don't even, the 6-7 thing still got me puzzled too. But all right.
Same here.
Yeah.
All right,
guys, let's get into it over here.
Yeah,
we got
definitely. So we gotta get going, and where I want to start is kind of where you started last week, Chris. We had a lot of conversation about Burrow, but then after this latest loss and looking at their schedule, you kind of have to start wondering if picking up Burrow is even going to work out. I mean, I still think it was the right move to do, but they've got who do they have next week? They've got New England, and then they've got Baltimore, and they got Buffalo. They're 3-7 right now. I mean, they could, by the time Burrow's ready to come back, they could be 3-10.
Yeah.
I mean, I think once they hit that 9th loss, what are we even coming back for?
No, it's a good discussion, Dan. My outlook, and I was thinking about this yesterday, as a matter of fact, because that was the chatter, as if Burrow, if they continue to lose, they're 8-point dogs at home without Jamar Chase in the suspension versus a New England team that's red hot. Let's say they lose these next 2 weeks and they're 3-9. Yeah, the season's over for them. I personally don't think that Joe Burrow as a competitor is going to stay off the field if he's completely healthy. And I don't think the franchise can stop him either. He'll be over the injury. If he proves every day in practice he's over it, he's a competitor. He's going to want to go out there and play with his guys as someone that got knocked out for most of the season and play the final 5 weeks, So I don't think, I don't think it's a factor at their record, to be honest with you.
I agree with Chris. I think that's so overblown in sports. You always hear people, just rest them till next year. Mm-hmm. These guys are pro athletes. This is what they do for a living. This is what they've done their whole life. They're not going to sit there and,
Especially Burrow, who is like a fiery competitor. Imagine the front office of the coaching staff going, all right, you're healthy, but we suck. So, Chase and Higgins, just leave them out to dry. Flacco's going to finish off the season for us. I don't see it. He's going to want to come back, light up the scoreboard for the next last 5 weeks, take that into next season and prove, hey, this is what I can do when we're fully healthy. Come next year, we're going to be, a potent offense and a team to worry about.
Real quick,
Devil's advocate on that, though, is Burrow has been pretty injury prone. I mean, they are taking a risk, I think, if they put him back out there in a lost season. And
there's a risk for every player that steps out on the field.
I get that. I agree with that. But, I think with Burrow, it's, he's had more trouble. But Dan,
let me stop you right there. Dan, let me stop you right there. This guy obviously busted his ass the last 8 weeks to get healthy, to come back and hope that, and they made the trade for Flacco to try and get to, I don't know, 5-7 when he gets back and go on a run. You really think they're going to keep him off the field? I personally don't.
I mean, it won't surprise me either way.
The only silver lining in this miserable season for them is hopefully the head coach is gone after this year.
No,
That would be nice.
most likely. Nelson, what do you think? If he's fully healthy and they're 3-9, 3-10, is he playing or no? You concerned at all?
I think he plays personally.
Okay. Yep.
All right, there we go. I am on an island on that one.
Yep.
So, all right.
While we're on that topic, though, I mean, while we're talking about the Bengals, we might as well hit the Jamar Chase suspension, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
You know, I don't think there's any hope that this gets overturned. I know this ridiculous, thing going on about, if I was going to spit, for real, I'd spit in his face and not on his jersey. The replay is pretty clear that he did spit. It sucks. I don't know how you guys think. I hear the chatter the last couple days since the suspension here with now T. Higgins is in line for a huge game. I might be on an island on this one. I think it's a negative for T. Higgins. You got Christian Gonzalez that could have occupied Jamar Chase, leaving T. Higgins open for a huge game in this particular game. Now Gonzalez is going to be matched up on Higgins all game. I think it's a negative for T. Higgins owners as well as Jamar Chase. Now let's look at Jamar Chase real quick. He was having a phenomenal season again, putting up big numbers with Flacco, who saved him. Week 10, he was on a bye. Week 11, he bust this past week off of the bye. And now week 12, he's suspended. So us Jamar Chase owners has got 3 big weeks in our fantasy season with nothing to show for in weeks 10, 11, and 12. It's starting to turn into a disaster here.
I mean, I think this game is a catastrophic game for the Bengals offense. I mean, you can't run on the Patriots. Now Higgins has to go up against C.G. Island, I'm going to assume, and that's no bueno right there.
Mm-hmm.
And their line's terrible to begin with, so it just could, everybody could just take.
Nelson's Patriots are just coming up roses week after week here with their schedule and everything. I don't know, Nelson. You think they're paper champions, or I know this isn't a fantasy topic.
Sure. But... So two things. One, I have a lot of Higgins, and the suspension to me is a negative.
Yeah.
For Higgins,
we all see it the same way.
So I think we all agree there that usually you would say the number 2 receiver now is in line for a huge target, share in the next game because the guy's out, the number 1 is out. But in this particular case, I was actually looking forward to Gonzalez being on Chase and Higgins being able to do his thing against the other corners, which, they're undersized to match up with Higgins. So this is bad for Higgins, I think.
Yeah.
The second thing, as far as paper champions, they've had a good schedule. And that's, because of where they finished last year. But I've seen enough of them. I think what's really going to set them on whether they're legit or not is their next game against Buffalo. I think that's what's going to matter. I do think that was a challenge against Tampa Bay going on the road. I was like, you know what? This is a pretty good test right here. Let's see what they're all about on the road against a very good Tampa Bay team. And they beat them. But I think if you go and you beat Allen in Buffalo a second time, I think you've arrived. You're legit. So part of me says, the schedule has been pretty good for them. But I also think that Drake May is playing at an elite level right now. When you really watch him at quarterback, moving in the pocket, the throws he's making, and then you watch someone like Trevor Lawrence, and then you watch like JJ McCarthy or
you put him there. Oof.
Or Bo Nix. I'm just saying, you watch some of these younger quarterbacks, and you look at the throws they're making or not making, he's kind of set the bar that he's an elite quarterback right now.
Yeah.
Especially with the weapons that he has. He really doesn't have weapons on paper. He doesn't.
Kind of Josh Allen light,
Yeah.
I-
Can
I've
I
been-
expand on that?
I've been
With
saying
the
this.
situation, I'm saying,
Yeah.
But
He's got a very similar skill set to Allen. Big
Yeah.
arm, mobile quarterback, big size quarterback. There's some
situation,
similarities there for sure.
I mean, he does have an 11-game span of like whatever it is, 2,500 yards passing, 20 touchdowns, 250 yards rushing, that no other quarterback has done. And I've been a big Drake May supporter going back to last year when I was calling him Lisan al-Ghaib. That's a Dune reference as the prophecy. But I do have to say that they've had an immensely easy schedule. You look at their schedule, but that's the beauty of the NFL. That's how these teams go from like worst to first. You play a last place schedule, and they've beaten the teams. I mean, it's still hard to believe that the Raiders dominated them in week 1. That's still mind-boggling when we look back on it, But yeah,
they're going to be
they're trending really good. So.
They're going to wind up, unless the Bills win out, the Patriots are going to win this division and host a playoff game. And, they're probably going to go into the playoffs 13-4. The record's going to look unbelievable. They're going to be hosting, and a team like, a Kansas City is going to wind up being like the 6 or 7 seed going into New England and being probably a 4 or 5 point favorite.
The playoffs are going to run through. It looks like Denver and and New England.
All the paper champions are going to be up top and hosting playoff games.
And those are some of the roughest weather places too. So it's gonna be pretty wild in the AFC. I think.
I think they're a dangerous team in the playoffs only because when you look at them, what do they do best? So they can stop the run. And they've got a shutdown corner that can shut down your number one receiver. Mm-hmm. That limits offenses.
That plays.
Yeah.
And Denver for the same reason. I mean, their offense Denver's offense is not as good as New England's, but it's kind of constructed similarly. It's just the quarterback play hasn't been as good, but on defense they've got the same thing going.
Yeah, I still don't think Denver's for real, but I'll say this. It wouldn't shock me if Denver's is in the AFC championship game this year, hosting it, just based on their defense,
Yeah.
Something like that. They win a playoff game, their first round game, and then they're in the AFC championship game, as the 1 or 2 seed. Wouldn't shock me, but that's a little real life football talk for our listeners. We'll get back to the fantasy talk now, guys.
Okay.
Right,
Matt,
I mean, let's touch on Thursday night. We got to say something about Trevion. He had 5 touchdowns in 5 days. You still got to.
Matt, you didn't wear your Trevion jersey today. How did you not show up in your trade jersey? No, you know what? Listen, go ahead. I got to bend the knee for the last 2 weeks. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, look, we still got to take the L on the season, but the process. Here was the whole process. It was that Stevenson sucks. And outside of 2 games versus the Dolphins and the Titans, he didn't do nothing. I mean, he really did. And even in those 2 games, he wasn't like a beast or anything. But here we are. So hopefully going forward, I mean, and they got the Bengals this week. They still got a really nice schedule coming up again because they were, a last place team. You want to talk about Trevion or something?
All I'll add is this, and Trevion's your boy, and it's been a great 2 weeks, but I'll say this. Looks most likely Ramondre is going to be healthy and ready and back in the lineup. And the $1 million question is going to be, is Vrabel loyal to the starters that got hurt and lost their starting job? That's going to be the $1 million question because Trey passes the eye test. He's killed it the last 2 weeks. Everything adds up to this should be Trevion Henderson the rest of the way for fantasy owners. But the game could start this week. Ramondre could be in the backfield, and even if he's there, healthy, and taking a time split away from Trey, it caps Trevion Henderson's upside there as an RB1. So that's the $1 million question.
Yeah, no, without a doubt, Chris. And, Vrabel seems like that guy with the veteran and all that. So that's terrible. The next thing I wanted to touch on, usually it's a very bad thing, but STD, we had Sean Tucker Day. You know, this guy came out. I mean, it's amazing. Once a year, he gets to play a full-time role, and you know, he looks like LaDainian Tomlinson.
Matt, I always associate Sean Tucker with you and me 3 years ago, talking about our love in the summertime going into the rookie season with Sean Tucker. And it's just crazy. If you were in Vegas this past year, Sean Tucker was my automatic 19th or 20th round pick in every draft in Vegas. I walked out and into the fantasy season with probably 80% plus of Sean Tucker on all my rosters across all my teams. And I got him still. I slipped him into lineups, a couple lineups this past week at a couple prime times, luckily, and I was rewarded with that 34-point explosion. This guy needs to either get traded and have a backfield to himself. The talent is there. You see it rushing and receiving. You know, it was just nice to cash in some of those Sean Tucker shares, even though I had to get rid of mostly all of them, you know, throughout the first part of the season because of, you know, him just sitting there doing nothing weekly. But when given the opportunity, you know, Sean Tucker is a really good running back. What happens now? You know, Bucky looks like he's, you know, warming up in the bullpen. They started turning the backfield over to Tucker from Rachaad White, at least, which I was hoping was going to happen these last 3-4 weeks earlier. It's another backfield in flux now. There's no way you could go sit Sean Tucker on the bench and say, hey, thanks for week 11.
You would think it's got to be a timeshare from this point on. But last year, he had a massive week like this. And then the next week, he got like 6 carries. And the week after that, it was like 3 carries or something like that. And he kind of faded off into oblivion. So I would say never. But with Bucky working his way back from a bad shoulder, I think it's probably a timeshare at least for a couple weeks. After Bucky gets back. Yeah. And Rachaad White, he goes away at the end of the year. He's a free agent. So I think they're probably going to. Yeah, they're gonna keep Sean Tucker there. I don't see him trading him away, and it's going to be a 1-2 backfield there with Bucky and Tucky, and they will be getting rid of Sucky. So,
damn, nice job, Bucky, Tucky, and Sucky.
And then
Sucky.
One observation on 3 players, and then I got 2 questions for you guys. So we'll bang this out real quick. Burden and Higgins both made moves this week. Burden took over that wide receiver 3 role from us.
Jaden Higgins you're talking about for our listeners, yep.
Well, no, first I'm talking about Burden.
No, I know, but you said Burden and Higgins. Jaden Higgins. No. Not T. Higgins. Go ahead.
Now I'm going to Jaden Higgins. Yeah, sorry about that. And then Jaden Higgins, you saw the routes increase to almost 55%. Target share, I think, was around 23-24%. So he seems to be. I mean, look, Davis Mills seems to be the answer. What's his name? I think from week two is wide receiver 8 points per game, Nico Collins, and it looked like a bad, season was going to be upon us.
Yeah, Nico's really turning. That was one of my observations, man. Nico's really starting to turn it on. It's because of Davis Mills these last couple of weeks. It looks like we get another Davis Mills start this Thursday night in the game versus Buffalo, which is another good matchup for Nico. It's crazy to say, but I'm hoping that Davis Mills gets the start. And I mean, he's unlike other starters. It's not going to be a Jacoby Brissett situation, in my opinion. They'll go right back to CJ Stroud when he's healthy the following week. But, Nico owners are going to be looking at, like Marvin Harrison and Trey McBride owners going, wait, we want Davis Mills back here.
And real quick, Bashal Tutin was, this was the game where he was over 50% of the share heading into the fourth quarter before he got hurt, and he was running really well. ETN is still good. It's not a knock on ETN when I'm talking about another player, but Tutin really seemed to get that emergence. He was running really well in that game. So that's something to keep an eye on with the ankle injury. 2 quick questions that are going to be big for me this week, and I think maybe other fantasy owners as well. So I wanted to it's both quarterbacks. The first one is Dak versus the Eagles or Brock Purdy versus the Panthers. I mean, that's a tough question. This is a big week 12, especially FFPC, where you're trying to get into that, at the end of the regular season. The other one, Drake May versus Cincinnati or Lamar Jackson versus the Jets. Those are two really
good questions, actually, because again, Nelson, you want to touch on you hit on that, Nelson.
Yeah, so all right. I wanted to talk about his observations. Can we?
Yeah, I wanted to hit on
Yep.
all of them too. They were all
Okay.
good observations. Go ahead, Nelson.
So one of the things I like what Matt brought up is with Burden and Jaden Higgins. I've been saying this now for the last few weeks. If you've got like these like scrub veteran wide receivers on your bench, and it's kind of like, oh, they serve a purpose, you can put them in, get you 10 or 12 points. Get rid of them if you can afford it, and stash the high upside rookie wide receivers. Yeah. So I've been saying this the last few weeks because going back historically, there's always, at least one wide receiver, usually a rookie, that comes on in the second half. I'm not talking about like your legit guys that have, been doing it all year long, like an Abuka or someone like that. I'm talking like, barely playing, like Burden, like Jaden Higgins, and then all of a sudden in the second half they take off. It seems like that's what ends up happening is like the coaches are like, okay, training wheels off and it's time to go. And this is the kid that has the juice, and that's what we need for the offense. So I think what Matt's bringing up is those are two guys that, like you look at it and you're like, oh, okay, I can see it. Like I can see the ramp up process and everything, but like it could come on quick where they just explode onto the scene, and you want to make sure that you have those guys stashed on your bench.
And they're taking over for veteran scrubs, right? Jaden Higgins is replacing Christian Kirk, who's running less than 50% of snaps. So you see the turnover there with Houston. So Higgins should be the number 2 to Nico down the stretch, and Dalton Schultz is coming on too at tight end. Offense could be decent. They have no run game. The run game sucks. Over in Chicago, though, same thing. You Burden, now that it's going into week 12, he's taken over for Zacchaeus, a veteran, right? It was like, all right, Zacchaeus, we were like, why the hell is he getting so much playtime? Well, guess what? He's a veteran that knows where to go early in the season. I believe, help me out, guys, wasn't Burden banged up in August in camp?
Yes, he was. July.
Both him and Loveland were banged up, and we said that they were going to get off to a slow start.
100%. So now they both got off to slow starts. That's why I faded Loveland and Burden, to be honest. I faded both of them in draft season. I had no shares. It was only until mid-season when everyone dropped Loveland that I said, I'm going to, same thought process as Nelson. We're going in on the young guys here for down the stretch. What's got me baffled is they're turning over Burden from Zacchaeus, but they refuse to turn over the tight end position to Loveland from Kmet. Kmet comes back healthy, and now it's more Kmet than Loveland. So, for someone like me that's a big Loveland owner, has many shares, I'm hoping that the offense is Loveland and Burden down the stretch, but they won't do that. And I'm sure it's probably because of the veteran leadership on the field at the tight end position for Kmet and things he does, blocking and stuff like that. So a little disappointment in terms of Loveland, but yeah, totally get your point with Higgins and Burden.
Can I just say something, being that we're on that, you mentioned the Bears. That Bears-Vikings game was like insane. It was so insanely bad. Yeah, I mean, J.J. McCarthy had an awful game, but in that first quarter, that drop by Addison, which is probably a touchdown if he catches that. I mean, it was just, and the non-trust of Caleb Williams at the end of that game to maybe get a few more yards. Mm-hmm. And I mean, they lost 5 or 7 yards trying to run the ball on a couple of plays.
Yeah. It's your weekly reminder here from the Fantasy Empire Show. JJ McCarthy sucks. That's it.
Yeah. He
got to wave the flag on that one, Dan.
Yeah, I am waving the white flag on that one. You've waved the white flag on Travion. I'm waving it on McCarthy. Not looking good at all. That's a guy who needs to take like a whole bottle of Xanax before he gets out onto the field.
And they were winning the game. If they just
Yes.
have kick coverage.
Well, yeah. I mean,
that
but,
was crazy.
yeah, they were winning the game, but
but
it should not have been that close. The Vikings defense was stifling Caleb the entire game. Chicago was struggling on offense. There's no doubt about it. They had basically 2 good drives. But, you can look at what the Chicago defense was doing against Minnesota, and there were players wide open that McCarthy was just missing. I mean, it was just
he did miss a lot.
Justin Jefferson's about to go A.J. Brown territory.
Oh, yeah.
He did miss a lot, but there were some bad drops. I mean, I watched that game. I'm not defending him. And the crazy stat of the game was Jordan Mason has season lows across the board, and it scores a touchdown.
Yeah, of course.
It's amazing.
That's the way it goes, because you finally think it's safe to put Aaron Jones back into your lineup, and then of course it's got to be Mason that scores.
Yeah.
Well, could we get any answers on the Dak, Purdy, and the May Lamar?
We'll do it after the break.
So, let me finish up my my stuff. So with the rookie wide receivers, so that would be like my advice, is that any guy that you're starting to see like be more involved with the offense, you want to stash those guys. Don't leave them on the waiver wire. The guys of like, I'm not trying to shit on these guys in particular, but guys that come to mind like Darius Slayton, like Sterling Shepard, like just these like whatever guys, like Zacchaeus. He's been like a 6-year veteran. I think he's been in the league like 6 years. What's he ever done? He's never done anything, never accomplished anything. Like I don't want those kind of guys going into the shootout and going into the playoffs on my teams, because it's like going with a BB gun to a real gunfight. And I look at it as, I want that guy that is either going to explode or he's going to be nothing on my teams, because you're going to need that kind of firepower in the shootout to try to score 200, have 200-point weeks, and potentially win a title in your league. Mm-hmm. So that would be like one of my things that I pay close attention to, like the last few weeks is,
Would you put Adonai Mitchell in that with Tyrod possibly quarterback, and if you could ever catch the damn ball?
So here's the thing. All jokes aside with like Mitchell, because he looked bad as far as catching the ball. Mm-hmm. But he looked good as far as getting open.
No, he was open. I mean, I should have won a small fortune on that game. I lighted that son of a bitch.
So
he couldn't catch the ball.
And there was one route where he beat Gonzalez down the sideline. Mm-hmm. He's got to catch that. That was put right in the breadbasket, and he's got to be able to make that catch for Fields. So I agree with you that he's a guy that's a player of interest, because he could easily ascend to just being like the number one guy. I think with Taylor at quarterback, it actually is a bump up for him. But he's got to catch the ball at the end of the day. And I think, unfortunately, it's one of those things where, how do I put it? Like, the offense is a run-heavy offense, right? And they don't really like move the ball. There's not many snaps on offense. So he's got to make the most of his opportunities, but he has that skill set to do it. So he would be a guy that I would add into that group. So that was one observation to piggyback off of your guys. And then the other observation that I wanted to make, and it's I guess a little bit off subject, but I wanted to talk about, I know you made the reference of like Tootin, nothing against ETN. So I don't know if that was like, I have a lot of Travis.
I only said that because I didn't want you to take offense.
That was it, Matt. Yeah. That's bullshit, Matt. That was a jab at you, Nelson.
I will say this. Time out.
That was the same jab that Dan threw at me with Trey Henderson, even though I was right for the first 9 weeks, and because of 12 injuries, Henderson became something.
I'm going to hear you out. Go.
He started out really hot, ETN, and then he really started to slow down. They had the bye in week 8. He came out of the bye. I even said it on the show versus the Raiders. He looked really good. And I'm not saying he's bad, but I was watching Tootin, and this guy was running like a beast.
Very good.
He looked
really
possessed.
good, no doubt. But you said coming out of the bye, you expected a little bit of a
it
happened a week later. Yeah,
it happened.
No.
It happened
three weeks later.
Oh, 3 weeks.
Okay, whatever. If he didn't get hurt,
so here's the thing.
He was looking like the guy there, and I'm still saying he
no.
played
Listen,
well.
I'm not a
Dan's like we had to take a break 12 minutes ago. He's sweating over there.
Listen.
You see him sweating?
I am totally not offended by it, only because
Matt is going to pull the plug on us pretty soon if we don't get a break in. So
if you open up, I'm not offended by it because that's been going on all season long since the preseason. And that was the point that I wanted to make and ask you guys this question. So obviously I'm biased, right? I've got a lot of ETN. He was free in drafts. I thought like it was kind of a no-brainer pick.
It was a great pick, actually.
It's worked out. At the end of the day, the numbers are the numbers. He's a top 12 fantasy running back at this point. Mm-hmm. Where he got drafted, I'll take that all day.
I'm giving you your flowers. You nailed that pick. Nobody's on it.
That's not necessarily what I'm looking for. Okay, so my question to you
want
guys,
chocolate still?
maybe chocolate
and the flowers. God damn it!
Yeah. So I just think it's interesting. It's like an observation. So we had Bigsby get traded. Everyone was on the Tootin train. Everyone wanted JCM to happen, Bill. Bad, right?
Rest in peace, Bill.
So what happened? Brian Robinson got traded. He moved up to like the 7th round. Eckler got hurt. Here we go. It's the Bill show. Never happened. And then like all of a sudden he got a little bump up in touches. Here we go. Never happened. Now Rodriguez took over. I guess my observation is this, because for me, I used to be like this. I used to have biased opinions on guys. I would form opinions early in the draft season during the summer, and I would have a hard time letting go, okay? Because I wanted to be right, okay? So my question to you guys is like, at the end of the day, for me now, I've gotten to the point where I just want to win, because that to me is all that matters, is winning, okay? As a person that gets paid to give fantasy advice, of course, like I need to have somewhat of a track record in getting guys right and getting, and not getting guys wrong, right? But I almost wonder, like with like guys like Bill and Tootin, like we want that to, it seems like when you open up X or Twitter, like there's so many guys talking about it. They want it to happen so bad. And I'm sitting here with ETN, and I'm like, okay, off the bye week, everyone was talking about, not just Matt, but everyone on Twitter was talking about big bump up. Here we go. Like, Tootin's going to start getting more of the share. ETN doesn't look good, blah, blah, blah. And all he's done is, like, he's rattled off, like, 3 very good weeks. ETN has. Okay, fantasy-wise, okay? And now, this past week, Tootin looks good. Developed a little bit of a hot hand, running well. He gets more involved, right? And now everyone's losing their mind again. Here we go.
I don't know if everybody's losing their mind.
Right, before we answer that, we're taking a break. We'll be right back.
I know your sad draft season is over, but just because the NFL season starts doesn't mean the drafting stops. Because Fast Draft has the Flex 6 Frenzy. You're drafting 6 guys for the Sunday slate. It's fast, it's furious, it's fun. And as with everything on Fast Draft, there are no salaries. Woo! So go to draftfaster.com, get the app, use your host promo code for a $50 deposit match. Now let's go start drafting faster.
And we're back.
hey, Nelson, I'll say this. I thought this
ran to the break so fast.
Was a fantastic year for the rookie running backs, one of the best classes in years. It hasn't worked out the way that I foreseen it. And with Jacksonville, like I said, I think the Week 8 break for the Jaguars was the best thing that happened to them. It really came at a perfect time. I think ETN got recharged, and it's going to be interesting going forward. I don't think ETN is going away, even if Tootin is really good rest of the season. But, maybe they have that Henry, like what the Saints used to have. Because ETN's strongest points and where he's really been explosive is he can bust that big run. So if you're using him less and you got Tootin in there, I think it's a benefit for that team because Lawrence is garbage. Like you've said it, I've said it. I think we all agree that we've reached that point now. So I think it's a bonus for them.
Well, as far as ETN goes, I mean, we said beforehand, when we came out of the break, hey, he just played Kansas City, Seattle, and the Rams. 3 very tough run defenses. So it's no surprise that ETN's stats were depressed. And he came back against a much easier defense, Vegas, or was it Vegas? No, it was it was Vegas.
It was Vegas,
and,
yes.
All of a sudden it's like, ETN looks good again. Surprise, surprise. Mm-hmm. So I'm not surprised by any of that. I had plenty of ETN. I had plenty of Tootin. I took whoever was cheaper. The ETN teams are doing much better, that's for sure.
They could both look good. Is the moral of the story here? But to Nelson's point about the with the Twitter, everybody on Twitter going Tootin's going to come out. We live in this world now on Twitter and with fantasy radio and podcasts. Everybody wants to be the first guy to plant the flag and carry the momentum and be like, I'm the guy that was on the Tootin train and I told you so and everything like that. And that's just what fantasy is now on social media and everything. So everybody wants to be the first person to be like, I'm right on this particular player. And everybody throws out Tootin since August. It's the same thing with Trevion Henderson and RJ Harvey. Everybody all summer long was, oh my God, Henderson's going to be the Jahmyr Gibbs and everything like that. And then the momentum goes and goes. And what happens? 6th round becomes 5th round. 5th round becomes 4th because it's herd mentality. Everybody is like, oh my God, everybody's talking about Tootin.
You'll take him in the 6th. I'll take him in the 5th.
Everyone's talking about Harvey.
Yeah,
but exactly at the table. Well, I'm going to be the guy that really play. Hold on. Everybody's going to be everybody. That's what happens at the draft table. Everybody knows that's the guy. Now, if I plant the flag in round 4 when everyone's taking him in 6 and 5, now I'm the Henderson guy. I'm the guy that planted the flag. Yeah, and that's what fantasy has become. That's when you guys all have to take a step back. When you see these hot players in draft season getting steamed up, you got to be able to say, the price is wrong now. I'm out.
Yep. Well, I mean, look, we can look. There's the Cam Scatterboos that I never thought Tracy, in the long run, was a threat to him. I mean, Tracy, if you look, even though he was good at the end of the second half of last year, towards the end, they stopped trusting him at the goal line. He was fumbling. And what Cam Scatterboo did as a college athlete was phenomenal. And when you look at these guys like a Tootin wasn't that expensive. I mean, he was a 9th, 10th rounder for the most part. And, when you're drafting, I started drafting in June. And guys like Henderson and Harvey, they were 5th, 6th round picks. And you got guys that were drafted in the 2nd round. You look at Harvey going to a Sean Payton offense, even after they signed Dobbins. And I drafted Dobbins as well because he was going so late. But you're thinking that it's going to be Ingram and Kamara, and this run defense this run offense is going to be so good, and it hasn't. I mean, I don't know how they're 9-2. Like the Bears are 7-3. I don't know how the Broncos are 9-2.
But the last thing on that, the Jaguar offense, though, to me is interesting going forward. Let's just put a bow on this with the Jaguar. They make the trade for Jacoby Myers. I know Trevor Lawrence sucks in a way, in a lot of ways, okay? But there is still a window for this offense to actually be fantasy relevant down the stretch. If Brian Thomas, who was on the practice field late last week, if he's back healthy, now they have a nice little slot receiver with Parker Washington to move the change. They're going to get Brenton Strange back now as a solid tight end. Who knows? This could be one of those sneaky offenses that wins people a lot of money these last 5-6 weeks. Maybe you guys don't agree with the 1-2 combo in the backfield. This offense could potentially hum a little bit. We see this every year. Offenses come out of nowhere, drop 30 points a week, and they're like, wow, everybody was focused on the Bengals, the Chiefs, the Cowboys. The Jaguars, were actually made a lot of money for me.
What about Tim Patrick?
Yeah, Tim Patrick. Yeah.
Having a game.
All right. Who's next?
All right, Chris.
Oh, all right. Let me pick off from there. Underrated offenses. I want to talk about two offenses that, like Jacksonville, I don't want to put them in this category, but two offenses I see the arrow pointing really up on after this week. And let's start with an offense that I think the rest of the season could be a top 3. Now, granted, for some of you listening at home, I've been wrong on this same topic because I thought that the Chiefs offense was going to go to the moon, 2-3 weeks ago, and they've done nothing but go backwards. But I think I have a new favorite offense that I'm in love with, and hopefully I don't murder them. The San Francisco 49er offense here is a problem for fantasy going forward if you're not invested in this. So I wanted to tie this into Matt's question that we left off with before the break with Purdy. Matt, I have a team that I picked up Brock Purdy last week on a big team. It was a Jalen Hurts team, okay? And I can tell you now, I think I'm turning that team over to Brock Purdy and sitting Jalen Hurts. I want to get out of this Jalen Hurts business bad. And after what I saw versus Arizona this past week with a healthy George Kittle back now, okay, looking real good. You got Ricky Pearsall came back. Even though he didn't do anything, he ran a ton of routes. Jawan
He was
Jennings
wide
is
open,
healthy.
too.
Yeah. I mean, this offense is now fully complete going into week 12 again, okay? Mix in the fact that their defense lost Warner and Bosa, and the defense is a sieve, okay? This is the offensive dream you dream about. I see San Francisco as a 30-point offense weekly here. I think they're the offense that wins a lot of people a lot of money, and I think Brock Purdy is a top 5 fantasy quarterback rest of the way here. So,
Chris, I was right there with you on that one.
That offense and Dan, I got one more, and then you guys can touch on both of them. The other offense that's sneaky that I think could put up a monster ending to the season here. Hear me out, guys. It sounds crazy, but it was the team that San Francisco played this past week. I think this Arizona offense could check in as a top 7 offense rest of the way. Jacoby Brissett is humming right now as a quarterback. He is getting it done. I would love to know what the Trey Benson update is here, but if Trey Benson finds himself on the practice field tomorrow, DeMarcado got a high ankle sprain. Take him out of the mix. I think Benson could walk right back into a real bell cow role here. And his ownership shares that a lot of us have with Harrison coming back. Hopefully, I don't think he gets back this week, but Harrison eventually. Trey McBride, the tight end, 1. And now a Michael Wilson who just caught 38 balls for 299 million yards. This offense could really be a sneaky fantasy relevant offense down the stretch if all the pieces come back with Brissett under center. So 49ers, Arizona, arrows pointing up. What do you guys think about those offenses?
DeMarcado's injury was so bad. I had him in so many spots. They would have had a great garbage time game. And I even mentioned to Nelson a couple of weeks back when he was available, I thought he was the best plug-and-play options out there available at the time. And, I got him, he got you multiple points the last couple of weeks. Yeah. And not that he was fantastic, but, he was a guy that you could sub in. And then that game, just the way it was going, it would have been awesome.
Matt, real quick on that, I have a big first-place primetime team that Jonathan Taylor is the lead dog. Obviously, a couple other injuries or whatever, and I went into this week and I started Sean Tucker and DeMarcado as my 2 running backs, and I was like, this on paper looks like shit. And I, at the end of the day, I mean, obviously Tucker got 34 points. DeMarcado would have had another 15-point game trailing from behind versus the Niners. It sucks that he's got a high ankle sprain, but like I said, I'm just waiting on this Trey Benson news here. He could walk right back into being a top 12 running back in this offense.
Yeah.
Go ahead, guys. Anything else on that, guys?
No, just
No,
that the
I-
Niners are the third best team according to the King.
Well, all right, which is fine, but we don't care about that for fantasy, really. So, and the thing is, I think Kittle has probably helped out the most by Purdy, because Mac Jones, for the most part, was not, up until the last game, was not really looking at Kittle enough. And with Purdy, he's always kind of favored Kittle. So if you've got the Kittle shares, this is looking really, really good for you.
He's going to kill it down the stretch.
He is.
I know I beat this dead horse every week with the tight end position, but guys, the tight end, elite tight end draft, was a disaster, right? Bowers gets hurt early. Kittle gets hurt early. Unless you drafted McBride, who's been solid all year long, it was the wrong way to go about it. Okay, but now look up. Here we go into week 12. The Kittle, Bowers, and McBride teams have a huge advantage every week. If you have those guys and you're in contention, these are the guys that are going to put 20-plus points on the board weekly.
Sam Laporta to the IL was.
Yeah,
That's another, add him
but
to
Laporta was a guy who wasn't really, he wasn't really returning that much on his draft position, though.
Yeah, but like in the NFL, he was going 7th round and stuff. He was good.
Yeah. I mean, he was relatively cheap, but he wasn't in the same level as those top 3 tight ends. But he was also considerably more expensive than your Tucker Crafts and guys like that. So
the gap widened is the point here, in my opinion. The gap widened. You lose Laporta, you lose Kraft, the other tight ends in that 7 to 11 round mostly busted. It's those 3 elite guys and Tyler Warren, and everyone else is fighting, hoping for 10 points fantasy, weekly.
Right, and let's. We have a question from Daniel Quintanilla asking about Juwan Johnson. I mean, we talked about this last week. Juwan Johnson is a guy that you probably do want to have on your team, because after trading away Shaheed, now all of a sudden he's likely the number 2 on this team in targets. So I'm all about Juwan Johnson. I've got him on a lot of teams. I'm holding
beautiful
tight.
Schedule.
Yeah, for sure. How
As
you
you
guys feel
mentioned
about
last week,
Gadsden?
Dan.
What's that?
I said, as you pointed out last week, their schedule.
Yeah, really
nice.
good. Yes, very. And how about
Waiting
Gadsden?
to see
How
that
do you guys
Saints
feel about him?
defensive ownership shoot up this week.
How about Gadsden rest of schedule? How do you feel about him? I mean, obviously he's out.
I
this
mean, I
week,
still
but-
like him. I mean,
Right.
they didn't, as JB mentioned, Joey Brown, they didn't show up. I mean, that was just crazy. That game was over, done. I mean, how the Jags just dominated. I mean, that was just something.
Complete bust out for an offense. It happens. It sucks when it happens and you're invested in that offense and that quarterback. But who was the other quarterback that dropped 4 fantasy points? That was.
Well, what about Lamar dropping 6.6?
Lamar?
Right?
Lamar a 6 in NFFC scoring. Herbert a 4. I mean, that's why the scores were so low across the board. If you dropped a 150 plus this week, you consider yourself, blessed, because I know it was the worst week of the season for me. I'm still trying to break out of my depression this morning from week 11. It sucked. It was a miserable day. The quarterbacks were a lot of the reason for it. The wide receivers weren't that far behind. A lot of 10 and under point scoring for a lot of good wide receivers. It was just an ugly, ugly week. And unless you were the Josh Allen owner, it was a shitty week for you at the quarterback position.
Just real quick, just on a football level, just as a Bills fan, that's what the Bills need to do the rest of the season. Just let Josh Allen be Josh Allen and take over games. I'm not worried about him getting hurt. He gets hurt, you're done anyway. But if you're not playing like this offense, I mean, Joe Brady's offense, you just want to run the ball and dump it off 5 yards.
Yeah.
It's very sad.
Yep. All right, Nelson, what do you got, man? You're up next, I think, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So my observation actually is my mindset right now is getting ready for the playoffs and looking at my teams that are in playoff contention. And then at FFPC, teams that, this is the final week right here, and then it's playoff time. So, just getting the teams that are locked in, I'm focused on getting the defenses right, my kicker situation right, make sure I have backup quarterback, backup tight end. It's kind of like my focus. And then over at NFFC, we still got a few more weeks to go. So it's all about just having an optimal lineup. And I do think that it gets to a point where it's nut cutting time, where you're going to have to make some decisions on teams where you get no trophy for holding this handcuff running back all year long, and he's not doing anything for your team, but you have a hole in your lineup, let's say at wide receiver or flex. You can't play that handcuff running back. Okay, that's going to get 0 for you, and you need to pick up a wide receiver or something like that. I think that's more of my focus has shifted at this point in the season, because all that matters to me is those teams make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Okay, wait, real quick, Nelson. That's a great topic you just brought up. My question to you is: you're saying that it's time to start cutting bait on the handcuff running back, the Ray Davis, the guy that does nothing, but in week 6, 7, 8, you're still hoping that a James Cook goes down and your Ray Davis shine, or any of these backup running backs. Are you saying going in on teams that are going to the playoffs, it's time to get rid of that for actual pieces?
I think at FFPC, yes, that's the case, because it's all about if you've got a team locked in, ready to in the playoffs, then it's all about setting up for the playoffs and making sure you have the right defenses that you want to stream.
Right.
Kicker situation, quarterback, you can't be going solo quarterback. We saw a few years ago where Jalen Hurts was carrying teams into the fantasy playoffs, and he missed time, and all those teams sank because they didn't have a backup QB. And I want to say that if you had taken the backup to Hurts that year, he was he was decent. And I'm trying to remember who the quarterback was.
On the Eagles, you're saying, that backed him up?
Yeah.
Wasn't it Kenny Pickett?
It was Minshew, wasn't it? Gardner Minshew?
Yeah, Minshew backed him up one year. Pickett backed him up one year. I think that year.
A few years ago, Chris.
Yeah,
Hurts came onto the scene, and he was a big piece of playoff teams. And
I thought it was Pickett, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I thought it was Minshew. But anyways, so that's more of my focus there. Plus, when I drop a player, he's locked. So he can't go, and if things work out or didn't work out to my advantage, someone else can't go and pick them up and take advantage of it. At NFFC, it's a little more tricky. You still got a few more weeks to go, for something to happen. So I'm not saying just willy-nilly drop Ray Davis and these handcuff running backs for nobody, but there's got to be a purpose behind it if you're doing it. I'm not saying, I'm not advising, just go and drop handcuff running backs and then something happens this week and you're like, what the heck? Now he's available to everyone in the league, that sort of thing. But I'm saying on certain teams, you're facing a bye week this week with, I believe, 4 teams on a bye. And then come week 14, okay, we have a bunch of teams on a bye, okay, and important players on a bye.
Good
and
teams.
We're going to get to the point where that week 14, you got to put an optimal lineup together, starting lineup, because you're trying to scratch your way into the playoffs. You can't save those guys any longer at that point. You got to put the lineup in there for the team to make the playoffs, because otherwise, who cares? If you don't make the playoffs.
That's the toughest part of going into week 14 is you don't get a fab run going into the fantasy playoffs. So you have to you got to get into the playoffs, set your team up for week 14. The fun leagues are the ones where you just ran away and you have your first place team, your second place team, you're going to the playoffs, and you can set your fantasy lineup up for, your ads for the playoffs and overlook week 14 in a way, or your week 14 lineup is set. Those are the tough parts, but you're right, Nelson. I've already started doing that a little bit. I didn't want to jump the gun, but some teams I know are heading to the playoffs. I'm looking at my fantasy defenses. I'm trying to add, all right, this is a good defense for 15 or 16 and add it. And what does it come at the expense of? It comes at the expense of your RB7, the Ray Davises of the world, and that's going to hurt and backfire if the star running back goes down now going into the fantasy playoffs. But I'm trying to set my whole roster up for success in the fantasy playoffs. It's a tough balancing act we do. You want to have the QB2 or even a third maybe on your roster. Your tight end position, you want to have depth. And it becomes a tough proposition at this point of the year. But
I think at quarterback, it's one of those, if you don't have like an elite quarterback or a QB just playing at a good level, but you have like two guys that are kind of decent, there's no guarantee they're the starter 3 weeks from now or 4 weeks from now in the shootout. So you have to look at that and be honest with yourself and say, I got to make a decision here. Like Justin Fields is a perfect example. You have him on your roster. You're like, he's not great. We already know that. But as a QB2, okay, I can get by. No, you can't. Penix gets hurt. Now Kirk Cousins the starter.
Sure.
Aaron Rodgers, you've got him as a QB2 as a backup. Boom, he's hurt. Who knows if he's going to play? What's going to happen? That's what I'm saying is like it becomes. We're getting to the point where it gets real tricky in how to manage those teams.
Sure.
For me, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I was just jumping in. I actually see it. I was going to say the biggest issue now is what are all these Flacco owners going to do? Your time's coming to an end, but Flacco teams could be going to the playoffs. Flacco took over and is dropping fantasy points for his owners. He's their starting, he's your starting quarterback right now, but you got to cover it. I know from one of my good teams, Flacco and Dart and Trevor Lawrence on my quarterback room, right? Now I look at it, okay, well, the Flacco time's coming to an end. So you're like, all right, great. Yeah, come week 14, he's out. Maybe 13. He's done and washed. You could drop him. But Dart's on a bye week in week 14. So now I got to carry three quarterbacks. And that third quarterback is Trevor Lawrence just to start in week 14 in case Flacco's already out of there. Dart's on a bye. I went and picked up Jaden Daniels to try and replace Flacco.
And that's the thing,
still have
Chris,
the ability to make changes before week 14. But the problem is, if you do need to use a Trevor Lawrence or something like that, then you're stuck after week 14. You can't just drop him again.
I tell you.
And that's the thing, guys. Just one more point. Yeah. So week 14, Brock Purdy. Chris loves Brock Purdy. So let's say he's got Brock on a bunch of his teams now. Week 14, he's on a bye. Drake May. We've got a lot of Drake May. He's on a bye. So you already need to start planning ahead. Hey, I can't wait till week 14 to go pick up a QB, and I'm starting freaking Shador Sanders or whatever. Or there might not. The way QBs are falling right now, there might not even be somebody available. So that's what I'm saying is you got to have a optimal lineup each and every week if you're scratching and clawing to try to make the playoffs, and you have to think ahead a little bit on these quarterback situations. Because
I did it last week with the Saints quarterback. I put a dollar bid on a couple of teams where I needed that third quarterback. He may suck and not do anything good, but there's really nobody out there.
And this all adds up to the fact that on top of it, we're all dealing with injuries right now. Fantasy's getting thin right now. Guys are dropping left and right. Dan rattled off 42 names at the top of the show. There are 4 teams on a bye this week. We're just trying. I hear it from all the people that we play with. I'm just trying to get a healthy starting lineup in right now. So it's tough to do all the things we're talking about now, setting us up for success down the road, while we're just trying to survive each week right now. We're going into week 12. Guys are banged up. Who's hurt? Who's out? Bye weeks, all of this. And we're trying to still
It's a balancing act.
Get ourselves ready for the fantasy playoff front.
But week
it really
14,
is. You're sitting here. If you've got two quarterbacks that unless you have a Mahomes or a Josh Allen or somebody like that, you probably better have three quarterbacks. If you have two quarterbacks and you're not real confident in either one, you better add a third. But by the time the playoffs come along, because if one of those two quarterbacks loses their job or gets hurt, now you're stuck with one quarterback that you were already a little bit uneasy about, and he's your only quarterback for the rest of the way.
But as Nelson said, week 14, Dart, Purdy, May, all on buys.
Right.
And
you have to carry your backup into the playoff. Like if your other backup isn't good enough, now you got to go get a third to carry, and that guy's on your roster for the rest of the fantasy playoffs for the next 3 weeks, and that eats up a roster spot, like what Matt's saying. So
like on my Purdy teams, I've been carrying Purdy and what's his name, who was called Mac Jones. I was putting in where I had to use him. But, it's going to be interesting, I think, because there's really – you look at the quarterback waiver wire in high stakes, it is just awful.
Yeah. Yep. Garbage. I got one quick question to add on to the fantasy playoff rosters and everything like that. Nelson, I'll start with you because it's your topic. What are you doing with Mike Evans? You see him on the wire right now. Is that if you've taken a team into the fantasy playoffs, you're in first or second place. What are you doing this week with Mike Evans? Or what have you been doing maybe in the last week?
Yeah, so last week I added him on teams, and it was team specific. So if I had the roster spot, or it was close, I was making the decision that if my wide receiver room was kind of weak, and Mike Evans is the type of guy that if he comes back week 15 and he's good to go healthy for the final 3 weeks in the shootout, that's the type of guy that I want to stash on my bench because he can be a difference maker. So I just looked at it as like him over whatever wide receiver I had. It was like a no-brainer to me, like add him on those particular teams. So I was already doing that last week. He's like 64% owned or something like that. I'm going to venture to guess by tomorrow night he's going to be close to 100% owned because I think now's the time that you make that decision on like a Mike Evans, a Jaden Reed, guys that you look and you say, okay, a month from now, when the playoffs start, if he comes back, can he go into this lineup? Does this lineup need that juice, right? I think that those guys fit that description.
Yeah, and the sneaky thing about it that seems very backwards is
I agree. Now, obviously that could totally backfire because Dan.
Well, I'm just saying, you've got Mike Evans. He can't get hurt right now. He's already hurt, and it's like that's the one advantage he has over all these scrub wide receivers that you might otherwise be adding is, what if those guys get hurt? You have somebody who's actually healing and, hopefully that there's we'll be able to see within, before rosters completely lock whether he's likely to be back or not.
Well, I think, I think you do it with I think you do it with the caveat that, you could drop him in week 14 going into 15 if the news comes out bad. But, my updates that I see is he's still supposed to come back around week 17. So it might be a complete waste of a roster spot. You're not going to start him in championship week if it's his first week back, probably, most likely. What you're hoping is that there's good news on him and he's back in 15 and then you get maybe 16 and 17 out of him. But it could be a complete waste of a roster spot.
Yeah.
That's the risk, though. There you go, Maddie. We're cooking with money.
I had like two.
Wide receiver one.
But again, you got to mention things. Like I mentioned last week on the show, Bijan Robinson was like 40. It was like last in carries inside the 10. You got to talk about that. And then what happened? He got 2 carries inside the 10 and he scored 2 touchdowns. What are you supposed to do?
Yeah. Well, we're bringing him back. I mean, we guys suck. This goes back to JSN last year. This show was single-handedly responsible for creating JSN. We know that.
Yeah, I think it was Bijan's time to shine last week, where the week prior it was Gibbs and Taylor and the other guys, and Bijan was getting his touchdown stolen from Algier and everything, and now this week that changed, and he was the one that stayed in there and getting the carries. At the end of the day, like I actually think that this is another interesting subject, because someone brought this up on Twitter and basically was saying, like, trade away Bijan if you can get in kind with him, trade him away. I actually think the opposite. I actually think he's going to get more targets with no London and no Penix, and I think he's going to get more work. So I don't want to be trading him away. I think this is where, like, Bijan could start seeing, like, an even heavier workload.
Right.
This offense is going to lean on him. Nelson, I think I saw that same tweet, and my first reaction was, this is group herd mentality again, because I saw multiple tweets. Get out from Bijan, trade Bijan. Oh, Bijan's screwed. Oh, there's going to be 10 men in the box. Oh, and I was like, yeah, usually that's the way everybody thinks. But you know what? Look at their schedule. Saints, Jets next up. You have two defenses that aren't world beaters, that aren't going to be able to stop Bijan. And then Bijan could get loose out of the backfield. We see it all the time with pass-catching running backs. Yeah, you want to load the box up? Great. Bijan will catch 10 balls out of the backfield and kill it.
That's the thing. He's so devastating as a pass-catching
receiver.
Look at McCaffrey all season long with no pass catchers, right? Kittle was hurt. Jawan Jennings was banged up. Pearsall was hurt. Mac Jones is the quarterback, okay? It's almost like a mirror image of what's going on with the Falcons. And what was happening? We're just feeding McCaffrey. We're going to get him involved out of the backfield. So, like, fantasy production-wise, that's all I care about. So I look at it as, like, this could be a good thing for me.
You know what's going to happen? They're going to put Algier in the backfield these next 2-3 weeks.
Yeah.
They're going to put Algier in the backfield a ton. They're going to put Bijan in the slot or out wide. Bijan's going to catch 6 to 10 balls every week while London is out. Watch.
The thing I noticed Sunday night, like, which baffles me, is like Jahmyr Gibbs to me is like possibly like the next Jamal Charles or something as close to it as possible. And the first game of the season, he got 10 targets. Since then, from like week 2 to week 10, he had 25 targets. I don't understand why this guy doesn't get targeted. And then you saw what they did. Get this guy in open space, and he's just, he's unstoppable.
This is the Dan Campbell effect, and that's kind of my next point, which is, look at what's happening with JMO and look at what's happening with Gibbs. Campbell soups them up, and that's all there is to it.
Yes, Dan, that's a great point. But just look,
that one, Dan.
Thank you.
Didn't Amon-Ra have like 12 targets, but only 2 catches? Like
12. He caught 2 balls on 12 targets. Just reinforcing, you take Jared Goff out in the outside in bad weather, and it's a complete disaster. So good observation, though, Dan. Arrows up for Jahmyr Gibbs now that Campbell souped them up and took over the play calling. Another guy, Jamison Williams. I think this will be a big finish for him these next 4 or 5 weeks with Laporta on IR, and Laporta might not come back. They ruled him out real quick early in the week. Not early in the week, but put him on IR. So, it might not just be 4 weeks. JMO's going to see a lot of targets.
He was written off the dead, JMO.
Yeah, and I think there was more to that than just the Laporta. I mean, I think when Dan Campbell took over the play calling, all of a sudden we were already starting to see that uptick in targets for JMO. He just has a better idea of how to use them.
Speed kills. I would want my,
and all right, and real quick, we're gonna take one more quick break. We'll be right back.
And we're back.
There we go. All right, Nelson got in there for me. Guys, I wish there was somebody to take over the play calling in Philly. That's what I wish. But Sirianni has never called plays, even though he's, supposedly the offensive genius in in Philadelphia, he's never called plays. I just realized that when I was thinking about, maybe Sirianni should take over play calling. He was a good play caller, and I'm like, wait, no, I don't think he ever has. So, how can Philly get fixed? I guess that's my
Do they have a
question.
quarterbacks coach that called plays? I don't know.
No, that team is a complete dumpster fire. I'd be getting out of the Philly offense. It's a disaster. And now their offensive line, which is always their strong points, falling apart. Lane Johnson got hurt. A couple other guys. Barkley can't. He needed 28 carries to get 85 yards this past week. They forgot about Devonta Smith so they can make AJ Brown happy. The whole offense is broken. Defenses have completely figured it out. And, I talk about those offenses where the arrow's pointing up that you want to be invested in. You can't have an arrow pointing more down than the Eagles. And I'll tell you this right now. I already pounded Dallas money line this upcoming week. The Eagles. Dallas at home will beat the Philadelphia Eagles this week. Take them plus the 4.5. Money line them. Dallas is going to get on a little bit of a run here, in my opinion. And the Eagles are going to lose a handful of games coming up.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So do you guys think the problem is the play calling or offensive design, or is it Hurts?
I think it's a little both.
I think it's a little bit of both. I think Hurts is not an accurate quarterback overall. And I think that the play calling is not creative. I think the play caller, they've always rested on the fact that they've had an elite offensive line and they've got playmakers at each position. Okay. And now with the offensive line not being so good because they're banged up and losing some guys, you're seeing that the play caller is not getting the ball to his playmakers and is not very creative. So I think it's a little bit of both. I also think that what doesn't help them is the fact for fantasy that the defense is very good, like very, very good. So that's going to keep them in games. And at the end of the day, Sirianni, that's all those coaches care about is, did we win at the end of the week? I don't care that it was ugly. I don't care that my number one receiver is pissed off. So did we win the game? And their defense is going to keep them in games like
that's
that.
The problem.
So, yeah,
that's the problem, Nelson, is we're looking for these, as Dan says, fantasy carnivals, right? You can't play a fantasy carnival with the Eagles. Their defense is now a strong point. They're a defensive team. That's what they are. They have a strong defense. Their offense sucks. Their offense, when they have the ball, is slow and methodical, and they want to eat the clock up. It's just you can't get high-scoring games, in my opinion, rest of the season with the Eagles. But they win. They find a way to win. They're a good team in real life in terms of record and everything. They'll probably be the 1 seed in the NFC.
I think that's a tough game this weekend. I'm not as confident as you. I think that's a really tough game. I don't know who's winning it, but I wouldn't.
That's why I'm saying I think it's a perfect spot for Dallas to upset them.
Last night they played great. The Raiders were just trash. Dak thrives against cover 3. They weren't playing well for the previous month. Sure. They had.
Yeah. I just think Dallas is a different team now with the inspiration with the guy that the defensive player that passed away. They were re-energized. They have so many weapons on offense with the play calling, and they got a lot of pieces in the trade and defensively. And healthy guys back. So that defense isn't going to be as bad as we thought the Cowboys defense was the first 6-7 weeks. It's a totally different looking defense, in my opinion, last night going forward. So just one of those teams I could see getting a hot finish is the Cowboys.
I would agree with that. Yeah, we asked last week, is it possible that the Dallas defense could end up improving with the additions they made? And, hard to tell.
A lot of people picked them up, Dan. A lot of people picked up the Dallas defense last week on Wednesday night, and I'm sure wherever they're available now, they'll be picked up as well. They have some nice matchups down the stretch, and they got pressure on the quarterback all night last night. Granted, it was versus Vegas.
Right. That's the caveat. We still have to see him against the real team.
Can I jump in and ask a quick question to you guys? I know I like to do this to you, but give me a guy that comes to your head, that comes to your brain that was either a bust or a terrible pick, hasn't produced all year long, but will be low ownership going into the fantasy playoffs. That could really make a huge difference if you get him on your fantasy. If he's on your fantasy team going into the fantasy playoffs, that struggled most of the year. I hope you guys. Maybe I didn't word that right, but I'm bringing this up just because Jameson Williams seems like that type of player that
Kenneth Walker. If they turn it over,
Ken Walker. Okay, Ken Walker.
Yep.
I mean,
I think we'd probably throw Marvin Harrison Jr. in there as well. Because he might be out another week or two yet.
Yeah, but I think with the Marvin Harrison thing, I think it was the quarterback. And
it was, yeah. But the point is, he was on your team. He wasn't doing you any good.
Yeah, no. I'm not disagreeing. I'm just pointing.
Got a couple answers in the chat here. Yeah. Bowers, definitely. Justin Jefferson. Yeah, sure. Okay.
I think
Nelson, what do you got?
I think Harrison, Tet McMillan are guys.
That's a good one.
McMillan over the last month
where they went in drafts.
Yeah.
What is it?
Yeah.
No, go ahead, Nelson. I'm sorry.
So with like McMillan and Harrison, like NFFC, they were going like third round, and you haven't really gotten like third round production. Like McMillan's been okay, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like until like this past week, we hadn't really seen that breakout game from him. And what changed is they started using him more in the slot. Yes. And we've been waiting for that. I don't know why it took so long, but like that could open up Pandora's box where now we could see him like in the playoffs, where teams that kind of struggled but got into the playoffs with him, I could see him being a potential difference maker and putting up big games.
That's a great one, actually, with Tet McMillan. And remember, we saw this last year with Bryce Young down the stretch as he got hot and the offense got hot. Tet McMillan was definitely on my list of answers for this one. So,
you
can see him having a big
BTJ from last year. BTJ came off hot down the stretch after not being particularly good during a lot of the season.
He's pretty much top 3 the last month of the season in pretty much all like the wide receiver categories as far as target share. It's just you're dealing with a quarterback who's been terrible. Outside of 2 games in whatever they call it, Mercedes-Benz Dome or whatever in Atlanta. When he goes to Atlanta, he puts up over 400 yards on Bryce Young. But I mean, otherwise otherwise he can't throw for 200 yards. It's the weirdest freaking thing. But McMillan, he's been good all year. He just hasn't reached – he's never been able to get to that potential where he was picked due to the quarterback position.
Yeah, but if I understood the question correct from Chris, it's like the guys that kind of haven't helped you necessarily.
I'm agreeing.
Who will be low owned because of their, not being successful the first 10 weeks of the season,
Yeah.
I was only pointing out.
A perfect example is Jameson Williams. So that's what I'm saying. Guys like that if you somehow benched him early and you said, you know what, a Trevion Henderson type, if he keeps going the way he is, who's going to be that type of guy that you could see turning the season around here and blowing up the last 6 weeks of the fantasy season and helping your fantasy playoff team out. We know all the main culprits, right? The main characters that have helped our fantasy teams, and they're littered at the top, in the overall standings. So you kind of have an idea of like who's going to be like highly owned. So I do like that question, Chris, of like just kind of playing that game of like, hey, who could be this difference maker that wasn't necessarily a big part of getting teams to the fantasy playoffs. So
I do like what
think about it, guys.
Chat.
Yeah, and think about it, guys. That's what usually wins you the fantasy overall because you got to differentiate. Everyone's going to have the usual suspects on your teams. But when you look at a team that's up top and they take a Jameson Williams or Tet McMillan, and they in your lineup, and then you look around and all the other teams don't have that player, and they go on that 3-week hot streak in 15 through 17, that's usually the difference right there. So, AKA like Brian Thomas last year, like Dan said.
I like the sleeper one. I like Burden. I mean, he was always kind of been said the end of the season. Maybe he's this year's Amon Ra, where that last month. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I mean, I wanted to say Bashal Tootin just for shits and giggles to piss off Nelson, but it's a joke.
Scotty the King Angle chiming in. I think his answer is the whole Seattle team: Darnold, all the running backs, all the receivers, AJ Bonner. Scotty, you're like the team mascot at this point.
He's trying to manifest Shaheed, and I'm all for it. But,
Shaheed, he was Shaheed. Shaheed was his answer. All right, I thought that was a good question. I'll throw out one more. Can I throw out one more while I'm on that topic?
Go for it.
Let's go for it.
Oh,
Christian Watson. Christian Watson's impressing me.
Who called him last week?
He had a really, he looks fully healthy to me. And I know the Christian Watson fan club through the years has been frustrating. Everybody's loved him, gone in on him. He's disappointed. But, Tucker Kraft is gone. And Christian Watson here just might be the top dog in this passing offense. Josh Jacobs, we're waiting on the news. It doesn't look like it's that bad. But, if Josh Jacobs misses 2 to 4 weeks here with whatever knee injury he has, and Green Bay has to throw more, also, let's add in the fact Green Bay's defense is not as elite as everybody thought it was going to be. This team could get into some back and forths here. Christian Watson,
hell of a touchdown catch.
What?
Hell of a touchdown catch at the end of the game.
Hell of a touchdown catch. But I'm just saying, last week we talked about it. We said that we were putting him in our starting lineups last week. We got rewarded with 21 points. He was like my highest scoring player last week at the wide receiver position on a bunch of my teams. He could potentially be a guy that's like a solid flex player for your fantasy playoff team.
Another guy that I'll throw out there that I don't think is going to be on many playoff rosters is CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah.
Oh, God, yeah.
That's possible. I mean, I got him on several. But, yeah, there are quite a few I have where he's not going to make the playoffs. That's a good point.
That offense, I know it was Vegas last night, but that was the offense we dreamed of. And you know what? As great as that game was for us Dallas owners, and I have a bunch of and hey, listen, the Fantasy Empire first place team is a Dak Lamb Pickens team. So we all enjoyed last night as well. But, this team offensively, it was a dream up until that last drive when Dak goes and throws an easy touchdown pass to Lamb, and Lamb drops it on the 1 yard line. That was heartbreaking. That was a 14-point play if you have the Dak Lamb combo. So that put a little bit of a damper on what was a really nice offensive production night from the Cowboys.
Yeah. Okay. Am I up or?
Matt, I think it's back to you.
You're up.
Why not?
Okay.
I got covered a lot of stuff here today, guys.
I got one more question. I still want my first two questions answered, but this is something that I think is a tough question. Maybe you guys think it's not. But Alec Pierce versus Michael Pittman this week. If you have both of them, are you going to play both of them? Would you if you had to play one, who would you play this week? So I think that's actually a real question. And my quarterbacks, who would you take? Dak or Purdy, May versus Lamar?
Oof. Who wants to? Let's go around the horn. Nelson, you want to start with that one?
So out of those guys, it's not the greatest matchup. So it all depends with Pittman and Pierce. I'm not looking to rush both of them into my lineup if I have both of them. I'm playing one guy. Most likely Pittman is who I'm playing. And then for quarterback, you said Purdy or Dak?
Yes.
So, that's a tricky one.
That is.
You're talking just this week, right, Matt?
Just this week for this matchup, because this is week 12, especially for FFPC. I got to make these decisions.
I think I play Purdy. I think that Eagles defense is good enough, even though, Dak looked much better than the last couple of weeks, and he's got CD and he's got Pickens, he's got Ferguson, he's got the weapons. We saw it with the Lions, right? Part of me, I was trying to tell myself the story of like, what's this game script going to look like? And I'm like, could be a shootout between these two guys or these two teams, or it could just be a shit show defensive battle. And I think that the Eagles defense is good enough that like that could just end up being like this kind of like ugly game. And I think I'm going to start Purdy over Dak on that one.
Yeah, I'm definitely worried about Dak this week as a big Dak owner versus that Eagles defense. But I still think that the offense is potent enough that Dak is going to get his with Lamb and Pickens. Someone's going to get open. Maybe it's a big Ferguson game, but there'll be enough points there. Purdy's the safe play, Matt. Purdy's 25 fantasy points easily versus Carolina. But we say it all the time. We're trying to read game scripts here. So to go to your other point with Lamar versus Drake May, Lamar's not going to have to go up and down the field over and over and over again. He might get his early, but it could be a huge Derrick Henry game. Give Derrick Henry the ball 20 times, go off, and Lamar sits there with a 20-point game. We saw it last week with Drake May versus the Jets. At least Drake May this week has that Bengals shit, defense, and the Bengals offense can move the ball. So I would go May over Lamar.
Lamar doesn't look right to me.
Yeah, I don't know if Lamar's 100%.
That was real disappointing.
That's in my notes.
For Lamar.
He's fully healthy.
Yeah, again, I want to bring up Chris. We talked about this already a couple of weeks ago, and I know what you're saying about Dak, but against Denver, we said, okay, let's see if he's matchup proof, and I think he answered that he's not, and I think it's a situation coming off a good game. We feel confident in putting him out there, but when we have an option like Purdy, I think I'd rather go with the matchup-based call in that one.
Yeah, and I'm starting Dak in most of my Dak league teams that I have, but when I have an option like this, and again, I'm not taking it away, but against cover 3, Dak's like yards per play is like 9 versus when it's not, and it's like 6. I'm just saying, it was a perfect matchup for them. And I was hoping Pickens got a 40 burger last night. He got over 30, which was fantastic.
Yeah, Purdy Monday night on, the spotlight on that offense. They're fully healthy. It'd be tough for me to go against Purdy. I think Purdy's a top 4 fantasy quarterback this week.
And to your point previous week, Chris, the 49ers defense sucks. And so, if Carolina can put up points on them, I think that's going to draw it into a shootout.
The other thing, too, that I'll mention, the Lamar Drake May call, it's going to sound dumb. I don't think that's less of a closer call for me because I think seeing Lamar not looking right and he's not in a rush to run. So, like, I feel like that hamstring, like, he's off. And, like, his running ability is what helps with his, like, upside and his fantasy floor. And what you saw last week on Thursday against the Jets, New England was running kind of a conservative offense, I felt. It wasn't very aggressive. And then once they got the lead, Henderson was doing well on the ground, and they just kind of stuck with it. But May still put up 20 in NFFC scoring. So, like, to me, that's his floor. So it's kind of hard to go away from, other than Josh Allen, like, I don't know if I'm starting anybody else over.
I think it's
against the Bengals.
Yeah.
What's crazy about Lamar is 4 out of his first 5 games,
by.
He had 35.5 points or more.
Right.
I was calling for QB1 season Lamar, and now it's all fell apart. If you're a Lamar owner, you've had a terrible season. It was nice early, but it's been a disaster since. And he's not right. And you're right. He's not going to run much right now. They know they don't need to force him to run right now versus a Jets team. This is the easy part of their schedule. They could get by it winning with Derrick Henry and a little bit of Lamar throwing the ball. And that's why I'd go Drake May.
Fair enough. All right. Chris, anything else?
Oh man, I think we hit on everything. Washington backfield. I know they're going into the bye week. Somebody talked about it real quick earlier, but Chris Rodriguez took over that backfield, and you know what? He looked pretty damn good. So coming out of the bye, he's actually available in a handful of big leagues. A couple prime times. I think he's about 85%. It's always interesting when you get a player that's going into their bye week that players can't use him this upcoming week off the waiver wire. But if he's available, that's got to be a big bid, I think. It's kind of tough because I was talking to a friend yesterday about this. Unless he scores a touchdown, what is he going to be? 80 to 100 rushing yards each week? He doesn't catch the ball. And if he doesn't get in the end zone, it's a whole bunch of empty yards, It's 8 to 10 fantasy points maybe. But he looks good. He got a ton of play. Bill is just the backup now. He came in every third or fourth drive. I don't know. It was a backfield takeover by Chris Rodriguez this past week. So something to keep your eye on when they come out of the bye in week 13.
How crazy was that Sunday morning game that it didn't go over? It seemed like both teams were inside the 10 all game, and it was 16-13.
I knew it was going to be a long day when Waddle got off to
what a smash spot too.
Only 8 fantasy points in a dream matchup. I said, man, I was relying on 20 plus points from Waddle in that game. So, I don't know, guys. What else you got?
Nelson, anything?
I'll throw out. We've talked about Nelson was mentioning about young rookie receivers popping towards the end. And Joey Brown put it up here, and I kind of agree with him. We're starting to see it. It hasn't really taken hold. But Pat Bryant seems every week to get a little more and more involved with this team. And, he had the Michael Thomas reference.
He's the clear 3.
Yeah. And
he's the clear 3. I started picking up Pat Bryant shares about 3 weeks ago when I noticed this. And I played him in a week, a couple spots, hoping that he was going to be like that Greg Dortch type from this past week, And he's one of those tough, what do you do with a Pat Bryant? It's like, can you really play him right now? In real life, he's coming on, and it's a nice piece for their team. He's still the third option in the pass game, but yeah, he's one of those players that you keep your eye on. You see the talent. In years to come, he probably takes over as the wide receiver 1, for them. But right now, it's a tough guy to put in your starting lineup as a fantasy owner.
Right. All right, Nelson?
I actually agree with Matt. He's another guy that's on my radar that I'd be looking to pick up. He's going into the bye, so he should be relatively cheap. But he's another one of those guys that, I'm seeing the signs of ascending, and it could happen. There's many signs that says it's not happening, but all of a sudden out of the bye, Sutton or Franklin get hurt or whatever, and you're going to be wishing that you had Pat Bryant.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Any other topics, Nelson?
That's all I had.
Okay.
Yeah. There you go.
All right. I think we've.
You want to take a break then? Because you missed one earlier.
Take a break.
Yeah, we're gonna take a long one, about a week long one.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate everybody joining us this week. As always, we love the feedback. Hit that like button, leave a comment, give us a review. Subscribe on YouTube, all that fun stuff. We really do appreciate that. Good luck to everybody in the Empire this week, and we will see you all next week.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.